Hello, how are you? I'm good. I'm good. How are you? Um, I don't know. I'll wait. I don't know if I'll wait. Maybe I'll just start the live because I am going to be putting this live up, I think, on my channel. But today I wanted to talk about the 12 houses in astrology because, of course, I haven't been able to stop talking about them or thinking about them, in fact. And I just wanted to talk about the 12 houses in astrology from the point of view of the kind of language that we use around the 12 houses of astrology. And also, if you have any questions about your own chart, um, as I'm talking and as I'm describing these 12 houses and what's going on in those 12 houses, um, if you come up with questions or anything like that, we can have a little discussion about your own chart as well. So if you have your own chart on hand and you can follow along with your own chart, you can do that as well. But I was really thinking about these 12 houses of astrology and just astrology in general because everything is so connected. I was thinking about the planets. And what I'm doing with this is I'm looking at the planets. I'm not looking at Neptune, Uranus, or Pluto. I'm not looking at those planets. I'm only looking at, so we're going to have Mars, Venus, Mercury, Saturn, Moon, Sun. Is that it? I think that's it. Right. Jupiter. So we are going to be looking at how those planets influence each of the houses, because each of the houses is kind of like based off a planet, like a planet. It's not the ruler. I think it's like the natural ruler of the house, but I don't know the exact way to like actually say it. But like for example, Mars is and seventh house. Mercury is connected to the third and ninth, not ninth, third and sixth house. The moon is connected to the fourth house. The sun is connected to the fifth house. And then we've got Jupiter connected to the ninth and 12th house, and we've got Saturn connected to the 10th and the 11th house. And I wanted to kind of talk about how those planets have their influence, and I wanted to look at the terminology that we associate with those planets. So, what I was kind of thinking about was about how I started with Mars, and I was thinking about Mars as a planet and how Mars represents a like forward movement. It represents desire, represents force. And I was thinking about the words like force and desire. And I went to actually look at the etymology of the words that were associated with these planets. So I was looking at the etymology of the word desire. And desire comes from, I'm going to be pronouncing these words not correctly, by the way, just obviously. But desire comes from the Latin, I don't know, but it comes from a word desiderat, and it says to feel keen desire for, and then it lol, I know. And so the prefix de, like de, is down, and the rest of the word comes from the word sitter or sidus, and that's star. And I thought that was really cool because it's down star. So the word desire comes from a Latin way of saying down star. And desire is literally us coming from stars, like the way that we do talk about us being made of star dust and us being made of star particles. The desire is kind of like a word that represents that. And I didn't realize that that's not something that I even knew in the past. And I was thinking about this last night, and I just thought that was really, really important. So desire is to really just to be, to exist, to for your energy to, yeah, isn't that super cool? I thought that was so incredible. I thought it was so like, it kind of blew my mind last night. I was like, maybe I was sleep deprived because I did stay up till 6 a.m. doing this, but but I just thought it was like an incredible thing that the very first house, which is ruled by Mars, Mars represents desire and a sort of a force. So a desire and a sort of a Anyway, so that was my kind of thinking on the first house then. So if that is representing the first house and that idea of being connected to the universe and being connected to the stars, the first house is really just the existence of desire in the universe. And then I was kind of thinking about like Star Wars, and we've got like Star Wars, and they constantly talk about using the Force. So I just thought that was interesting. The word force comes to mind when I think of Mars. There's like a forceful impact, a forceful energy. And also, you will understand why I was thinking of force so much when we get to the 12th house. Uh, yes, yeah, so with desire, so if your Mars is debilitated, does that affect your ambition? Um, I would say, like, I would say that that's something that you should see from a perspective impossible for you to be ambitious, for you to have strong ambition. But this is your ambition. I would say it would affect your ambition, but it's not ambition. I would say it affects your desire. Let me get my mic. Yeah, I wouldn't say it. Give me a second. Can you hear me better now? Can you just let me know if you can hear me better now? If you can know, I hope it should be working now. So, anyway, it's not really. Okay. Oh, shit. Let me hold it up. Let me know how the sound is as I go. I might just hold it then. I don't have a better mic now. It's just what I'm working with. I would say it more so affects your desire rather than your ambition. To make with the first house. So if we were to look at our first, I think it's because the lives keep reconnecting really weird, but desire is also maybe it's the live. It could be the live. I really hope it improves. I hope it improves. Otherwise, I'll just have to kind of keep going with it. But yeah, with the idea of force connected to desire, I was also kind of thinking of like courage and bravery, because in order to desire something, there needs to be like a desire something. If you haven't cultivated enough courage in yourself to desire something, it's going to be very hard to connect to that sense of desire. And if you are not connected to your sense of desire, it's like a loop. It's the infinity loop. It's very hard to connect to your bravery, because when you desire, you like cultivate bravery or courage to go for something. And when you cultivate your courage and bravery to go for something, you increase your capacity for desire. So that's kind of how I was looking at the first house, right? I was looking at the first house just from a pure point of view of desire and the courage to have that desire and knowing that you deserve to have that desire. But so I was kind of thinking about the 12 houses, how they kind of leak into each other. There's actually a lot of leaking in. They kind of seep into each other. They're not separate from each other. They're actually very bound, and they're kind of like a part of the same mass, because then we're going into the second house ruled by not ruled by Venus, but Venus is connected to the second house. It feels very comfortable in the second house. So the second house with Venus, the words that I was looking at was indulgence, because that's a really big word that we kind of connect to when we are thinking of Venus. And the definition of the word indulgence is, the etymology for indulgence is indulgere, or I don't know, indulgere. It's Indulgere. So that translates roughly to give free rein to. So you're giving something a free rein. So you're giving your desire a free rein when it comes to Venus energy and then when it comes to your second house. So the second house is really about also about desire, but you're going into like the next stage and what that desire does in the process. And let me see what I wrote down because I wrote down a lot of things. So then I was looking at Venus from the point of view of value, and because we do associate worth and value to the second house, you know, whether it be value as in money or whether it be values like our own personal yeah, they build off each other. Exactly. Like there's a very seamless progression between them if like we look at the words. But I was looking at Venus as from the point of view of the word value, because that is a very, very strong energy that we connect to with Venus. And that the play, or it is to be strong, to be strong. So the Latin word literally means to be strong. There's a lot of strength in the second house. And in order, if you think of the second house is where we absorb nutrition, is where we absorb our environment. So in order to be strong, we need to accordingly absorb our environment. And when we absorb our environment in a healthy kind of way, where we have the ability to absorb our environment, whether it be through eyesight, whether it be through hearing, whether it be through not speaking, tasting, smelling, whatever, feeling, when we absorb the environment, it makes us feel strong. It makes us feel grounded, and therefore it makes us feel like we're worthy and like we have some sort of worth. And so I wrote down, so I have a progression where the first house is I desire, and the second house is I deserve, because there's a sense of worth that is connected to the second house. So to have strong worth is to be strong and with second house. But again, wealth is not only material, wealth is not only in terms of finances. Wealth is health. Wealth is when you have an abundance of something, you have a surplus of something, that you have enough for yourself and there's more to go around. You don't have to worry that there's going to be a deficit of something. And so if you have high self-worth, you are more likely to cultivate more wealth for yourself, more abundance for yourself. If you have more abundance around you, you are more likely to cultivate a higher self-worth. And again, it's like the infinity symbol, where there's like two sides to each house. So actually, I never looked up the word wealth. I really want to look it up. I'm going to look up the definition of the word wealth, and like maybe the etymology of where it comes from. An abundance of valuable possessions or money, but I would say resources, nutrition, all of that. It's literally, wealth is just, it comes from the English word well. Like you're well. Your wealth comes from the fact, and health is connected to it as well. So you're well, and then there's the health. The word health is also connected to it. So health is actually quite, we always think of the sixth house as the health house, but the second house is really important for health, like physical health as well. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so the second house, the first house is where we realize we desire something. The second house, something, I am worthy of it. I have enough worth, or maybe enough abundance to go get it. So then we go into the third house. So I was looking at the third house, and the third house again is connected. So it's connected to Mercury. and it is connected to thinking and processing the info. So if we know we deserve something and we have the wealth and the abundance to go get it and process that abundance and process that wealth to cultivate self-worth, the third house was a little bit tricky for me, and I think that's where this like Gemini energy comes in, and I thought that was really cool because I couldn't decide between the words perceive and understand for the third house. And I think it's like both of them are really important because there's slight difference between perceiving something, because you can take in information in the second house, with your senses and with your touch, smell, taste, whatever. But perceiving something is slightly different. So let me just look up definition of perceive. To become aware or conscious of something, come to realize or understand. So like to perceive it results in understanding. So and so I did look up the word conscious, and that comes from a Latin origin that is very similar in the word is very similar to conscious, and it says knowing with others or in oneself. And that is exactly what the third house is. It's like a sense of knowing of something. And a sense of knowing of something is a sense of understanding something. So, for example, if you know a language, that means you understand. And so another thing that I was looking at is that actually I did look up the word perceive before, but I wrote it down here. There is a word in Latin that the word perceive comes from. And again, another butchered pronunciation, percipere or percipere, I don't know. But it means to seize, to like seize something, like seize the day. But to seize is kind of like to grasp something, right? To seize something is to grasp something. And we say we grasp something because we understand it. So there's like a grasping energy to the third house. It's like, I caught it and I understand it now. So that's the third house. So if I desire, therefore I deserve it. If I deserve it, therefore I grasp it. So, and I grasp it as in I understand it. I understand it in order to like because I think these 12 houses are really important to like our understanding of manifestation and how we can manifest. So first step is to desire something, to have that feeling of like, I have this force in me that desires this thing and I want to manifest it, whatever that thing is. The next step is to say, I am worthy of it. I have enough wealth in front of me or assess your wealth or whatever it is. I deserve it. I am worthy of it. Next step is I'm going to seize it. I'm going to perceive it, understand it. I'm going to grasp the concept of what I'm trying to manifest. I'm going to grasp the actual idea of what it is I'm trying to manifest. So then I feel like I'm out of breath. Then we're going into the fourth house. And so this is where I think, because after you understand something, you go, I want to go back and I want to look back on when I didn't understand it. I want to go back and look at like when I didn't understand it, where I just had the desire. Let me go back and reflect back on when I just had the desire. Before I understood the concept, before I grasped the concept. So I'm going to look back on my deserving stage and where I was feeling like I was worthy of it. And then I'm going to go back again and look back on when I grasped it. And then there's a reflection that happens with the fourth house, with the moon, because the moon is connected to the fourth house. And in Vedic astrology, I don't know that much about Vedic astrology, and I really would love to find a mentor for Vedic astrology. I'm going to find a mentor for Vedic astrology because I really, I feel like I'm kind of struggling to. With the moon is like a mirror, right? So, what did I write down? So I looked up the word moon, and the word moon has associations with the word month, but also with the word measure. So it's like you measure, when you reflect, you kind of measure, like, okay, because I feel like there's something to do with intuition. We measure our intuition backwards. Or like when we reflect on something, we could going into the past, because the moon and the fourth house are strongly connected to the past, reflecting on the past. And the whole point of the moon is, as a luminary in astrology, is to reflect back to us our whims, our emotions, our intuition. It's kind of the things that can't have parameters. So with the reflection, with the fourth house, I also looked up the word luna, which is light or brightness, and also I looked up the word crescent. And crescent goes back to, but it actually means to grow, or growth, or to grow. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, because it's like, if you're reflecting back on something, a concept that you've grasped or understood, and then you're reflecting on the time before you understood it, you're reflecting back on the time when you knew you deserved it but you didn't understand it fully yet, your awareness kind of expands and grows. And so also the moon is connected to the subconscious. So is it that the subconscious is actually, like, because I feel like the subconscious actually comes before the conscious. Does that, not the conscious, before the ego? The subconscious comes before the ego. If we were to use the 12 houses in astrology the way that I am looking at it. But I don't know if I'm right. It's just naturally the way that the houses progress. Like seeing how far you've come. Really interesting. Yeah. Seeing how far you've come. Like, look, I had a desire. I didn't even know I deserved it. And then, wow, then I figured out I deserved it. And I had like the abundance, and I was worthy of it. And then I grasped it, I seized, I understood the concept. And then you're in the reflective stage, and that's the fourth house. Once you've reflected, it creates like a mirror, right? Because you've reflected, and now you're kind of like, you've gone backwards. So you've gone forwards, and you've also gone backwards. And so there's like a mirroring energy that's happening between the first and the fourth house. And in the fifth house is where the ego, I believe personally, is born then. Because the ego looks at the reflection and goes, oh, this is me. Like, before I grasped the concept of what it was happening, I didn't even know that, like, this is me doing this thing. It's just like the pure desire was moving me. The pure instinct was moving me. But now I have like an awareness that I also have worth. Like, I don't just have a desire, I also have worth. And I also am able to perceive, seize, understand concepts. And I am also able to reflect. And now I'm looking back on myself, and I see myself as like as very separate, as very separate from anything else, because I'm able to reflect back on my own. It makes me very self-aware. It's kind of like, you leave a party. You leave a party and you were maybe in the moment and you were enjoying the party. That happens to me a lot. And then you go back home and you reflect on the party, and your ego goes, oh my God, I was probably really annoying. I was probably really loud. I was probably doing this. This was really embarrassing. I can't believe I did that. So I think like reflection brings, or maybe if your ego is healthy, right? Your ego is like, oh, I had such a great time, and like I feel so fulfilled, and I'm alive, and I exist, and what a great time I had at the party. But like that's where I feel after the reflection, that kind of the ego comes in, and it depends on whether the ego is healthy or unhealthy. That will depend on that. But that's where the sun comes in. And you know what? I looked up the sun, and literally the sun just means the sun. There's no like any and in any language the sun just means the sun. Most of the languages, like I struggle to find any other, like, or like I think in one language it was like the bright star. But the sun doesn't, in terms of etymology, there's not like that far that you can go into the sun meaning something else. The sun just means the sun. And I think that's very interesting. Like, it's the idea of like me, like this is me. Like, that's all that we really have in terms of words then for ego. And sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm getting a call. Sorry, I hope that didn't disturb. let me see if my mic is still connected. Okay, so that's the ego, and it depends on whether the ego is healthy and how you cultivate the healthy ego is there. So with the ego, there's also willpower then, because once the ego kind of has like becomes self-aware and it's like I exist, I'm here. There's also then the willpower to continue living, and with the sun being like the life force in astrology, that makes complete sense as well. So there's willpower to exist. That's where the fifth and the sixth house become connected, and there's like a dribble down with the sixth house, because the sixth house is about like a pattern of behavior that is aided by the ego. This is how I'm seeing it, because the ego becomes aware of itself and it starts to express itself, it starts to show itself. At some point when it gets to the sixth house, it is expressing itself in some sort of pattern of behavior. There's something that it's doing consistently. And I was thinking about the word consistency. The word consistency is a way that holds itself together. But like if we think about it in terms of human life, consistency is like the way that you hold yourself together as a person, and again, what goes under that? It's your routines, it's your exercise, it's whether you exercise your mind or your body, is your sorry, I was going to say something specific, but yeah, it's like the routine things that you do consistently that hold you together as a person, that you don't become dispersed, that you parts of associated with decluttering, it's associated with keeping things clean and neat, but it's also the house of service. But it's not just about serving other people, it's like service to yourself. If you are keeping things consistent for yourself, you're keeping things, you're doing yourself a service, you're helping yourself. And because the sixth house is still a part of the more introverted side of the chart, I would be more likely to see this house as a house of service to oneself rather than to the collective. It's also connected to the collective. They all are, because everything's so interconnected in a chart. But so yeah, consistency. But then what I was looking up as well with consistency. Sorry, I'm getting excited. So consistency, to consist of something. Sorry, I'm getting so many calls today. I don't know. Wait, let me check my mic. Yeah. To consist of something is to exist. Wait, I think I've frozen. I don't know if I think I have frozen. Let me try this. I think this might work. Yeah, I think this is working. Okay, great. Sorry, I'm being distracted. So to consist of something is to exist, and I think I think there's a really strong between the 6th and the 12th house, because the 12th house is kind of non-existence, but we'll get to that in a bit. The 6th house is this drive to exist. So where we have the ego of like the awareness of existing and awareness of like, oh shit, I exist and now I must express myself, exist. The 6th house is like, I must continue existing, and in order to continue to exist, I must be consistent in some sort of way. But the thing is, also, if you think about it, Mercury rules Virgo. Virgo is a mutable sign. Consistency does not necessarily mean avoid change. Consistency just means having routines that serve you, having routines that are healthy. Again, that's why health is under the 6th house. Okay, so also the word that I was talking about from Latin, where consist comes from this Latin word. It means to exist, but it also means to stand still or firm or to stop. And I thought that was so interesting, because the thing is, if you want to stand right, in order to have a morals that you are standing firm on, you need to land on these morals, and you need to stop and make a decision on them. There needs to be a decision made, and therefore those morals affirm your existence because you are deciding to stand still or firm on something. So interesting energy with the sixth house, because there is this mutable energy that we get, but really it's about creating firmness through mutable energy. It's consistency, mutability, and changeability for the sake of firmness. And if you think about it, if you were exercising your body and you were moving your body consistently, you were moving your body, but you're creating a firmness through movement. I just thought that was really, really interesting for the sixth house. Okay, so we've got this drive to continue existing, therefore to stay consistent. So we then move into wanting to, and because you want to continue to exist, you're kind of like, once you exist on your own, in your own consistency for a while, you're kind of like, okay, I've worked out my own consistency, but routine is part of the sixth house. Get bored if you are not integrating other elements into it, if you're not applying other energies to it. So you come to the point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to mingle. I'm ready to mingle. And we get the seventh house with I want to connect. Connection is important. And I was thinking about how the seventh house is if the sixth house is consistency, the way consistency of a substance being held together, seventh house can be a combination of a mixture of elements, like, let's say, consistency of something. Like if you were creating food or you were like making dinner, you would want to have, in order to have interesting dinner, you would want to have complementary consistencies within the meal that you were preparing. And that's kind of like where the seventh house comes in. It's like complementary pairings, something that complements the other thing. So once you go out of the sixth house, you have your consistency and you have your routine. You're looking for another consistency and another routine, another leave it at that. Complement yours. That's where you connect to something, you bind to something, because when you connect to something that complements you, you bind to it, and that creates a union. So that's what the seventh house is about. But then the union, right? If we think about it, union, in terms of etymology, union goes back to a word that means one, as in just one. And that's where it kind of goes back to the first house, where the seventh house informs the first house, because in order to connect, it's not the first house, it's like the whole progression from the first to the sixth house. In order to connect, create a union with somebody else or something else, you must be achieved with yourself first. The structure of this kind of reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with more tiers, of course. Oh, I must look that up. I don't know anything about it, so I'm gonna look that up after. I'm gonna write it down because the comments don't save us, so I'm just gonna write it down. I actually was just talking to someone about how, like, tarot and astrology, there's a lot of aspects of like there's just a lot of connections to like hierarchy in general, and how like they can be so capitalist as well. But sorry, I'm just taking that down. And that's where the union happens. But in order to be at union with somebody else, you need to be at union with yourself. How do you make sure that you're at union with yourself? You go through first to sixth house and you do it right. Okay, so then we've got the seventh house. That's under wraps. We've got the connection going. We've got the union going. Did I look up any other words for it? No. No, I didn't. Okay, cool. So then we're going to the eighth house. And I actually feel I myself, I think, have misunderstood the eighth house for a very long time. And I think a lot of us misunderstand it because the eighth house is division and distribution, really, if you think about it. The more I was looking into it and looking into the words that we associate with the eighth house, and also it's ruled by Mars. Mars is force, right? We're going back to desire and force. But it's slightly different than it was in the first house because it's been transformed through all the other things. Mars creates force or desire to either share or to distribute in some sort of way. And that can either be in the seventh house, if with another consistency, you may feel the need to share, with like really share everything with that within that union. And so in order to share something with someone, like I'm my own person, let's say I wanted to share something of my own, let's say I wanted to share some money with someone, I would have to divide that money away from myself. I would have to divide that money in order to distribute it and to share it with another person. Or if I didn't want to share money and I actually wanted to keep things to myself, I would have to divide away from the person. So I think the eighth house is kind of like the energy of like, are you dividing something away from yourself in order to share it with whoever you're creating a union with? Or are you dividing the union in order to keep from sharing? And neither is wrong or right. It's just like that idea. It's like it's about dividing something either away from yourself. Well, you're dividing either away from the person or you're dividing an aspect of yourself in order to share it with the person. And that is connected to Mars energy. So topics like sex, for example, it's like if you are dividing something, like when you're having a sexual experience with someone, you're sharing a very intimate part of yourself with that person. It's like you're giving a part of yourself to that person and vice versa. But also the eighth house can rule things like divorce, because where I would rather divide from you than share my resources with you anymore. So and then death, of course, is ruled by the eighth house, or not ruled, but it falls under the eighth house. So again, it's like that division from a person, but it's from a point of view of a person dies, and I must divide myself from the person that has died and like go through the grieving experience of dividing myself from the person that has died in order to process that grief. And at some point I just need to make the decision that like, okay, I have to let that person go. That person is gone. That person is dead now. Or I need to divide a part of myself in order to keep holding on to this person that has died. So like the eighth house makes the most sense. And again, I could be wrong. In a couple of weeks I could be saying like, hey, I was wrong again. So I don't know. But like, yeah, the eighth house is like division and distribution. But division either in order to move away or in order to share. Okay. So once you've divided and distributed, or you decided to divide away so that you could keep your resources or whatever it is that you want to keep, because there's like that idea of death, and the eighth house is that division and distribution creates like a lesson that is formed, because before the seventh house you are just doing things on your own and there's just a desire to be in your own energy. But then after the seventh house, you've learned from that like point of view of somebody else being in the mix, another energy being in the mix. So yeah, sorry, actually, before I move on, the eighth house I wrote down because we've got I connect for the seventh house, and then the eighth house is I part. I wanted to write down I part because I looked up the etymology of the word part, and there's two or partire, and partire is share and partire is divide. So it's like the same word with just like a slightly different ending means share and divide at the same time. So I wrote I part for the eighth house because I feel like that went along nicely with I part in order to share. I part with something in order to share it, or I part with the entity in order to like not share anything and keep it for myself. But then, okay, the ninth house, let's get into it. So the ninth house is connected to Jupiter, or Jupiter is connected to the ninth house, whatever way you want to look at it. And so the ninth house is about expansion. It's about evolution. And it's also about like chance. And I wanted to, actually, chance was very interesting. Like luck, chance, fortune, right? Destiny, fate and faith. So I wanted to look up the word chance, and there was a Latin word that it came from. Cadere, I don't know. But it means to fall. Chance, if you go far back enough, to fall. And I kind of thought of trust fall, you know, like you have faith, you do a trust fall. And I was kind of thinking how the eighth house, either you have shared with someone in a way that makes you trust people. So if we look at our eighth house and we've shared with people and it was a healthy kind of sharing and we feel safe in our sharing, and the way things get divided and distributed, we feel safe enough that we're like, okay, next thing, I'm going out into the world. I'm going to get to know even more people. And I'm just going to trust. I'm going to trust because the universe shares with me. I share with the universe. I have a healthy understanding of sharing, distribution, dividing and distributing. And so I'm just going to do a trust fall into the universe. I'll be caught. And so I'm going into it. Or maybe you had a very negative experience of sharing. Maybe you got cut short. You know, division and distribution was not was not happening for you like in a good way. But then that could be resulting in the opposite side of the spectrum where you go, I just gonna fall back again, like the whole idea of chance, or the definition of the word that the word chance comes from is to fall. I'm just gonna fall. I'm gonna leave it up to fate. I'm gonna leave it up to destiny. I'm gonna leave it up to the universe because I just don't care anymore. And it's not so much about fate then. It's just about like, I don't know, nihilism. Maybe I don't know. But I think like the ninth house is really just about falling into something and just being like, whatever happens, happens. And I think that's like really strong Sagittarius energy, which could, you know, we can associate with the ninth house. But again, the perspective is, and this is going to be a thing with the Jupiter houses, which is the ninth house and the 12th house. I think Jupiter can actually be seen as both optimism and pessimism. That's just going to be my personal opinion, because I think Jupiter is so broad. Again, if you're like falling into something and you're just like, I don't care what happens, whatever happens, happens. You can look at it from a very like optimistic, like whatever happens, happens. And I trust the universe and the universe will catch me. And, you know, whatever I believe to be God, and other cultures and other people around me, they're like, I know and I understand that they will catch me and they will provide for me. Or you can look at it from a perspective, I'm just going to fall. It's not necessarily a trust fall, but I'm just like leaving it up to chance because I just don't care anymore. And I'm just sick of everything and I'm tired. I think that's kind of like what the ninth house is. Of course, there's like all these details of like other cultures, foreign travel, you know, higher learning. That's all connected to that as well. But I think the essence of the ninth house is trust and faith and chance. And just being like, I trust my luck, I trust my chances. Or maybe I just don't care anymore. You know, I'm just going to chance my arm. It's like, how many times have we heard of people being at the end of their rope and just being like, I'm just going to take a chance on this because I just don't care. How many houses are there? There's 12 houses. So I'm on house 9 right now. So, yeah, so there's 12 houses. So, once you go through that trust fall or not so trust fall, sorry, actually, did I want to say anything else on that? Probably not. I think that's kind of the essence of what I wanted to say. Yeah, I wrote down for the ninth house. It's kind of like faith versus fortune, their take on what the 10th house is. But the more I went into the house, which is connected to Saturn, 10th house, we know that the 10th house is strongly connected to responsibility, obligation, legacy, career. People really associate with career, but really, I went into look at the word obligation, and I started thinking about the word oath, or like, because I looked at the word promise, but I really got to the point where I was like, the 10th house is all about vow. It's all about what you vow to do, because once you have had that trust, or you just had a fall and you left it up to chance, God or whatever, universe, like, let's say it catches you, because if you get to the 10th house, something got you. Luck got you. Luck saved you. Luck gave you something. The universe has provided in some sort of way, enlightened you in some sort of way. So you get to the 10th house and you're like, wow, the universe has really like pulled through, give back. I'm going to leave a legacy. I'm going to I'm going to leave something behind, because the universe caught me, like, whether it be because I met like really good people that have caught me, or the universe has arranged something for me that's caught me, that makes me want to vow. But then I was looking at the word legacy. So the word legacy in Latin goes back to this word, and it means person delegated. And if we think about it, it's usually associated with the 10th house in astrology. And I think if we look back to the past, the father was the person delegated for the family. The person delegated to be at the head of the family. The person delegated to take care of that family. And so the father had to take a vow to take care of his family. And so he became the legacy bringer, legacy provider. But it's not like that anymore. So I wonder if we should start looking at astrology the 10th house doesn't really resonate with the father anymore, or does it still? I don't know how people feel about it, but the vow to do something, and once you take a vow to do something, Saturn, which is connected to the 10th house, is very closely connected to karma. That once you take a vow to do something, you're creating a bond. My word is my bond, right? My bond, or my word is my bond. My vow is my bond. You're binding yourself energetically to something because you're taking a vow. So that's the 10th house, right? And that's where you have to provide legacy. And I suppose career comes under that, because you may vow to do things in your career. So if you are going into a certain area or a certain career, you may vow to deliver certain things in that career. You sign contracts. And, like, we do talk about the 7th house dealing with contracts, or being responsible for contracts. Or not, 7th house is responsible for contracts. Contracts being important over the house, or falling under the 7th house. Yeah, I think that's still, because they're not merging in the 7th, deliver something to multiple people, whether it be your own family, or whether it be like a company, or whatever, to the public, to who your dependents, your descendants, in a way, because that's where the that's the 10th house. So that's the 10th house. So what I wrote down for the 10th house is vow versus duties, because when you vow to do something, then you have a duty to carry out. So the 10th house. So then once you have a duty to carry out, so you may define yourself, because the sun is where you define yourself, right? You define yourself through the sun, and you reason through the sun. So you could define yourself through the vows that you take and the duties that you hold. That might be like a way to interpret that placement then. Okay, so once the vow is taken and you have a duty to uphold, in order to uphold a duty, you're going to go into the 11th house, where you need to cooperate. The 11th house is where we make that contact with the collective. I mean, the 10th house, family, or, a small portion of people. The 11th house is where we're really connecting to the collective. And it's like, oh, in order to deliver on my duty, in order to create a legacy, in order to follow through on my vow, I will need to cooperate with people. I will need to cooperate with the collective. And so for the 11th house, so for the 10th house, we go, I vow. And then for the 11th house, we go cooperate. To cooperate is to work together, goes back to the Latin word as well. And it literally means to work together. So work together with the collective in the 11th house. But when you work together, that is also something that results in contribution. You are contributing to the collective. So you are working together with the collective and you're contributing to the collective. You are very close to the collective consciousness at that point in the 11th house. And the 11th house, it's all about humanitarianism. It's all about collective thinking. It, social media and the internet is associated with the 11th house lately. I like to associate it with the 11th house because I think it's just like really latch onto the collective. And so the 11th house is where you cooperate and you contribute based on the vow that you took and the duty that you're upholding. Some houses seem to overlap more than others. Is that why they're separated by elements modality? I mean, maybe it's just the way I'm describing it. Maybe I'm not, if I was paying enough attention to what I'm saying, maybe I would have been able to connect them a little bit more. But like they honestly are all connected. You could find a connection between, like from what I've been observing, most houses you can see how they're connected, especially the houses on the same axis. If you haven't seen my video on where I talk about houses on the same axis, so for example, like 1st to 7th house axis being apart, it's more like a spectrum. It's more like a spectrum rather than two separate houses. It's more like the line is the spectrum and the 1st house is one side of the spectrum and the 7th house is the other side of the spectrum. And the way that I would look at it is like the 1st house is more introverted, personal, me kind of energy, and the 7th house is more extroverted energy of us. But they're the same thing, just on different sides of they're mirroring. That's exactly what I was kind of talking about in that video, how they mirror each other. They're not the same thing because they're on the opposite sides of the spectrum, but they're a part of the same thing. But okay, so the 11th house, we've cooperated, we've contributed to the collective, we're connected to the collective, and we move on to the 12th house, where once we've cooperated, once we've contributed to the collective, we get to rest because has assured us rest. It's kind of like, I feel like it's a good house to look at like retirement. So in the 12th house, that's where you go to rest. The 12th house is where so the 12th house is also ruled by Jupiter. Sorry, the 12th house is also ruled by Jupiter, or it's connected to Jupiter very, very strongly. And optimistic. Hello, how are you? Thanks for joining. Jupiter can be both optimistic and pessimistic from my point of view. I know we kind of look at it as optimism, but I think in the 12th house, that is very, very, very evident because we can look at rest as in like having rest in the 12th house can indicate something. You were just reading up on this last night. Yay. I feel like a lot of people are having the same ideas at the same time. I think a lot of us are really talking about the same thing or just like or learning the same thing at the same time, but we're not like talking about it enough. So that's why I was kind of like, I need to start talking about it, even if not a lot of people are going to watch it. But with rest in the 12th house, so rest as in rest in peace, repose, repose. Oh my god, I can't speak because my tongue is getting tired. Rest in peace, like repose in your sleep, repose in death, repose in rest. So the 12th house is once we've cooperated, once we've collaborated, we feel peace because we've connected to the collective consciousness enough that the collective consciousness makes us feel rested. And that can look very grim, as in like I've connected to the collective consciousness because I am dying and I'm dead. And so rest in peace. Or I have connected to the collective consciousness because I contributed, I've collaborated with the collective, and now I get to rest. The collective is now looking after me. And I also, hello, hi, how are you? And another thing that I was thinking about the 12th house, I actually did write this down. To rest so I was looking at the word escape and rest as associated words with the 12th house, and also the word absolve came to mind, and like it has that kind of similar idea of like being detaching, letting go, getting away from certain constraints. But also people were absolved of sin before religiously. So people would go and ask a priest to absolve them of sin. And I think that's very interesting as well, because the 12th house, of course, is like death. It can be religion. It can be that kind of like side of life that cannot be understood. And so if you were dying, the 12th house is actually, I think, is very much connected to freedom, because once you are connected, you dissolve back into the collective consciousness, you're free then. So, but the 12th house is also the house of nothingness. If the first house is a house of something, it's a force, it's a desire. The 12th house, the house of rest, is a house of nothing or a lack of something. So, we've gone through the 12 houses now, right? The 12 houses are done. The first house is the will, the force to kind of to purge the force, to the desire to exist. And the 12th house, rest, escape, freedom, detachment, absolvement, is like a lack of desire to exist in a way. So when you're resting from something, you're not desiring. So a lack of desire equals rest. So you feel rested and you feel relaxed and you feel peaceful. And in a way, I think the 12th house is connected to peace. When you're not desiring, when you're not like constantly looking for something, desiring for something. And a lack of desire is a lack of life in a way. So like if a soul doesn't have a desire to exist, it's at rest. Or like a person isn't desiring to exist, the person is at rest. Or the person isn't desiring something, the person is resting, because they're not chasing after something. They're not trying to manifest something. They're not chasing money or goals. They're just rest. So the 12th house, I think, is like the absence of desire, and the first house is the presence of desire. And that's where the cycle starts again. We go again. And I think the whole cycle of the like the wheel of astrology is really just representation of desire moving through the 12 stages of desire moving through. It's like no matter how often you desire something or how you desire something, there's always going to be a longer. Like that's for me to think about it morning. But so I very cool. So the word desire, find desire here. Goes back to desire doesn't exist. Strong feeling wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen. Wait, there was another one that I thought was very. Let me. Here it is. to feel, okay, so to desire, to feel a keen desire for something that is lacking or absent. So desire something is to feel like it's lacking in your life. And if the first house is the beginning of the very first point of a person living, your rising sign is the point where you were born, right? It's like the time that you were born. If the first house is the goal to exist, and desire is something that comes from a place of, oh, I'm lacking this. This is lacking in me. So I want to manifest it. I have a desire to have this. So desire can only exist in absence of something. One desires when one feels something is missing. So in a way, the universe felt such a lack of you in itself, it desired you into existence. And I thought that was kind of like, I don't know, it's just like something that kind of comforted me, because in a way the universe felt such a lack of every single person, whoever like watched this live or whoever's gonna watch this video. The universe felt such a lack of you itself that it desired you into existence. And I think that's what the 12 houses kind of represent. At some point, this might be a bit depressing, but the universe will cease to have you in it, and you will die. Sorry, I had to bring it to a bit of a depressing moment there, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Like the first house, the 12th house, representing desire, therefore representing life. Yeah. And it's just, I think it's beautiful, and I think it's so poetic, and it's so cool. And I know this is not like necessarily something new or anything revolutionary that I'm saying here, but I think it's just like different people say differently, right? And different people explain astrology differently. And this is just the way I want to explain it. And this is my perspective, and I'm putting it out there. And I know this is not something revolutionary, but it is something cool, I think, you know. And there's so much to go into the human life, and it's so fun. But okay, anyway, does anyone have any questions about their own chart? Do we want to talk about that? If not, I'm going to end the live. But if anyone has any sort of like questions, or like, is there a house that you are like within your own chart? Is there a house that you're fascinated with? Do you have a stadium in a certain house? You know, if you feel like asking a question, please feel free while I'm still here. Yeah, it's very cool. This is the first time I've heard someone explain the, because I've started looking at tarot as a language. If you have not seen my tarot by tarot videos where I read on each of the major arcana cards, like please check it out, because it's one of my favorite things that I've done. But I started looking at tarot, and each tarot card is almost like an aid of a language, and tarot being a language. And I started kind of like looking at, like, there's so many words that I use, especially because English is not my first language. Like, I learned English when I came to Ireland when I was like 11, almost 12. There's so many words that I use that I just use them in a very autopilot-y kind of way. It's like at some point I heard that word, I understood it, and I know what it means in the context of like conversation, or I've seen it like in books written down, but I never actually like went and saw the full like core meaning of it. And I started doing that with words in general. Like sometimes I will just be thinking about something, and I'll be like, oh, this word, and I just like, I really need to know the meaning of this specific word, even though it's like a word that I've used. Actually, today I looked up the word zodiac, because I was like, what does the word zodiac actually even mean? And zodiac, word animal. And then what does the word animal mean? Like etymology of the word animal is something that has breath. So I thought that was so cool. And I was kind of thinking, like, it's interesting that the zodiac is connected to the word animal. I don't know, just something about it was very interesting to me. But yeah, like looking up words is actually really fun. And I was like, I to do that with the 12 houses and actually like go into the very words that we use to describe these houses. And like I thought the 10th house was the most interesting to me because it was like that idea of the vow, and the vow being your bond and you being binded to it. And then the fact that Saturn is connected to the 10th house, and Saturn is so closely connected to karma, and everyone always talks about Saturn brings karma, Saturn's going to bring your karma. But the thing is, like, Saturn is really just like whatever you promise, whatever you vow, that is your bond. So be careful what you promise to people, because that's gonna, like if you're not able to deliver on it, Saturn will catch you out. But yeah, I that's it really. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. If anybody, I'm not seeing anybody ask about your charts or anything like that. So I think I might just end the live, or any questions at all. Like, I don't. What does Saturn in Aries in third house conjunct Venus and Mercury? So, okay, let's look. Saturn in Aries in your third house. So that's my only question. Thanks. Okay. What does Saturn? So Saturn is in Aries in third house. Saturn being in the third house there. So if we were to look at Saturn from the point of view, I'm not going to look at it as like the way we always talk about Saturn. Like, we know it's like restricted, it can be restrictive, but again, if you take a vow restricts you because you are saying, I'm going to do this, and because you have that vow, a vow, if you take a vow restricts your desire, right? Because if you take a vow to do something, if you have a desire outside of that vow, you can't go for that desire because you have to carry out the vow. And if you go for that desire, the vow will come and get you. So if we're looking at it from that point of view, right? Saturn is a vow that is taken, a promise in the third house. So third house being the house of, sorry, I'm going by my system that because I don't want to go by how I knew astrology before. So third house, the house of perception and understanding and communication, seizing something, seizing a concept. There's a lot of, in this life, I feel like that means you've promised to grasp a lot of concepts. And in Aries energy, Aries is connected to Mars desire, so your desire is very strong. So Aries being the sign of Saturn makes me feel like in a way that is passionate and is desire, like you have vowed to grasp a lot of concepts in this lifetime in a very passionate way. Like, that's the way that I'm reading your chart right now from what we were talking about. Like, I'm not looking at your chart from the perspective of how we usually would read a chart. So it kind of makes me, you have vowed to learn a lot and grasp and understand a lot of concepts in this lifetime, and you will have to carry out that karma. You have, then we've got conjunct Venus and Mercury. So conjunction is like a merging of those energies. You've a merging of Venus and Mercury there as well. So if you're using the whole sign system, I'm assuming that Venus and Mercury are in Aries as well. If you're not using whole sign, but so Venus energy and Mercury energy is there as well. And if Venus energy is the energy of, so they're all in Aries. Okay, so conjunct Venus and Mercury. You've got all that Aries energy there, which is very impulsive, brave, desiring energy. Thank you. I'm glad you like my life. I appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who is watching, by the way, because it's like so minimal, but I'm just like really enjoying these conversations. So the Aries energy, which is like very desiring, very imping, the vow that is taken in the third house, communication, concept, seizing the concepts, understanding concepts, language, even. And Venus energy adds on an energy of feeling deserving, and Mercury energy adds on an energy of being very analytical with it. There's a lot that I mean, like that's a very significant energy in your third house. It's kind of like you have, I think wherever you put Saturn, just from what I've kind of like thought through here, I think is where in this lifetime you have, it amplifies it then, but amplifies it in the way that planet expresses itself as well. So with Venus connecting to Saturn, conjuncting there, Venus is really about value. So you would need to learn that really derives a lot of value for you and creates a lot of self-worth for you. And then with Mercury, it's you need to be very analytical and very observant with it as well. So that's what I have. So then we have LXNA Nova, one that's been on my mind for some time. What is your preference between Western versus sidereal astrology, or do you use both? I'm more used to it. I said at the start of this live, like I do want to, I want to, and you're welcome, as Zed. You're welcome, Zed. I feel like it is just because I'm used to it, and I feel like the other ones are outside of my comfort zone. I really do want to learn Vedic astrology because it is the original. It is where we started with astrology in many ways. But I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like I need a teacher or a mentor, and I would really like to find one. If anyone knows a teacher or a mentor that I could connect to. But yeah, I do use Western astrology. I do look at my sidereal chart as well, but I think it's literally just because that's what I started with. That's what I'm used to. That's all. I don't think one is better than the other, or I think whatever suits you. Because the way that I see astrology is a way to start deconstructing yourself. But I think you can do that with your sidereal chart. You can do that with your Western chart. You can do that with your Vedic chart. Like, whatever form of astrology you decide to pursue, it you can't deconstruct yourself and understand yourself in the wrong way. Like I think they're all completely valid. That's just my that's my opinion. Okay, so I have turned astronomy to astrology. Oh my god, did you study astronomy before you got into astrology? And hi, Lauren. Hi, how are you? Thanks for popping in. Oh, could you suggest a person for me? I would, if you can DM me on Instagram. Yeah, it's at Astro Wheel of Fortune. Or you can email me, astrowheeloffortune@gmail.com. I have my details in the description box below. If you have like people to recommend like that, because I am looking for a mentor. Like I would really love to get a Vedic mentor, a mentor in Vedic astrology. I would really like to connect to one. I want to be someone's protege. Because I think like with Western astrology, like I have been learning it for a very long time, but I still feel, thank you so much. Thanks so much for that. I really just my mind keeps being blown by it, like completely blown out of the, like last night, I'll tell you, last night I did not sleep till 6 a.m. because I was doing this. I was looking up definitions of words. I was writing down, I desire, therefore I deserve, therefore I perceive, therefore I understand, therefore I reflect, therefore I am, therefore I exist, therefore I connect, therefore I part, therefore I trust, therefore I vow, therefore I cooperate, therefore I rest, therefore I desire. Like, I was writing all of this. Oh, and actually at the start of this live, if you missed the start of this live, I want to say something really, really cool. The word desire, right? It's just because I said it at the start of the live when there was like 1 or 2 people watching. But the word desire comes from a word, it's like desirat, I think, in Latin. I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but it means to feel a keen desire for something. And the word broken down actually translates exactly to down star. So down star, it's like, that connects to us being connected to like stardust and us being made of stars. And that's what the word desire means in Latin. And that blew my mind last night, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I just thought that was incredible. I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. That's what the word desire, if you go back into the the Latin version, or the Latin origin of it, it means down star, like a fallen star. Like, I don't know, like, yeah. I just thought that was so cool. Um, Sorry, was there any other questions? No, there wasn't any other questions. Is your sun sign the same in both? No, I'm a Pisces in Western astrology, and I'm an Aquarius in sidereal. I'm Pisces sun, Sagittarius moon, and Capricorn rising in Western. And I am Aquarius sun, Scorpio moon, Sagittarius rising in sidereal. You have trouble sleeping again, but you know what? It wasn't like I was having trouble sleeping. I wasn't like cranky. I was like activated. I was like, I need to. It's just like it felt like a lot of things wanted to come out, and I wanted to research a lot. And it's just, I've been feeling like it's not that like I couldn't sleep, but it felt like I didn't want to sleep. That's probably a more accurate way of expressing that. Like, it felt like it's kind of like I was like, if I sleep, I'm gonna waste something. It's like there's something in my brain that I'm gonna waste, some sort of potential for reflection that I'm going to waste if I go to sleep right now. I didn't go to sleep till 6 a.m. and I woke up at like 9 a.m. this morning, but I haven't been to sleep. Like, I haven't had a nap or anything, but I feel amazing. I don't know if anyone else is feeling that way. Like, I'm just feeling so activated, like so like full of beans. But yeah, okay, before I go, any more questions, or I'm just going to go? I'm going to leave. Okay. Okay. Thank you everyone who watched this live. I really, really appreciate it. It just like means so much. I was channeling hard. I was really channeling. But it wasn't just about channeling. It was like just literally looking up definitions of words. Looking up definitions of words connected to each house. Thanks so much, Zed, by the way. You stuck through the whole live. I so appreciate it. It made me feel like I had someone listening, so I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for to everyone that has stuck around and watched this live. I will have it up on my channel. Thank you. Ashtosh. Oh, Ashtosh, thank you. And thanks, Stephanie. Oh, thanks. I will respond to your DM now. And thank you for sharing this experience with me. Thank you. Because, I feel it's important to feel listened to, and it's really nice. I feel very listened to right now. So it's not just me being crazy for a few hours during the night. And I won't delete this video. I won't. I'll keep it up. Don't worry. Bye. Oh my God, is that Nicole? Bye. Thank you for watching. But yeah, so I'm gonna leave the live now. I'm gonna put this up. This will be up if you want to look back what I was talking about. If you missed like most of this live, you're so welcome. You're so welcome for the info. If you missed most of this live, if you want to catch up, I basically go through all of the houses and kind of like the words we associate with the houses, and I go into the etymology of those words. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you so much to everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.